Hello everybody. In this screencast we're going to look at how can you send data to a fragment after the fragment has been initialized. So we looked at how to send data to a fragment when during initialization, right? So after the fragment is initialized, we'd like to send data to a fragment. I'll have a use case here to show you, and that will demonstrate that concept, right? So let's say we have our home fragment. That's the one that we have been using for some time now. So here's the layout. We have the home fragment, which is this. And let's say we add another button here. And let's say we add this button to be under the age, and then make this one go under the button. Here it is. Okay, so we have this button here, and let's give it a little bit of margin. Okay, and we will call this button, I'll call it set, for example, okay? And it will be set, for example, education, okay? And basically we'll add a text box here, and that text box is the education. So basically this will be, let's say we do it one here and one here to center it, and then it will go all the way here, and basically this is going to be the education level of that person, right? And then they get to pick an education level. So basically we'll get to it in a little bit, but what's happening is that when they click the button, they go to another screen, pick an education level, and that education level needs to appear here. Okay, so we are here, and let's just put a little bit of margin on the sides. So basically this one is going to be an A, not assigned, right? And this one we'll call it selected edu, right? Education level, right? So basically they come in, they see the form, they click on select, they need to go to another screen, which is this screen. Where is it? Let's see, it's called the education selection screen. And we show them the list of education, possible education levels. They pick one of them, right? And they click submit, and that's another fragment. So basically what's going to happen is, what we would like to do is, when the app starts, it shows the home fragment. You click on set, it goes to the education selections fragment, so it replaces this home fragment, puts it on the backstack, and then it displays the highest education degree completed. You pick one of them and you click submit. That data goes to the main activity. The main activity has to send it to the home activity, and it needs to be displayed here. Okay, so now in order to do all of that stuff, let's just get the wiring done, and then we will demonstrate how to do that. So the home fragment, we'd like, when you click on the home fragment, I would like to go here, void, go to edu selection, select fragment, right? Do something like that. And then basically I need also access to that button. So basically if you go back to the home fragment, the button is called button set education, right? So I go back here, and in the on view created for the home fragment, I'll go in and say binding dot set educate dot set set on click listener new on click listener. So basically that's the listener for the button, and then we'll go and say listener dot go to education selection fragment, right? So that's going to trigger that to happen. Now we go to the main activity. It's not going to be happy because it's missing one method, because we added a method to the interface. Here it is. This is the method. Go to edu. So basically what we're going to do is get support fragment manager dot begin transaction dot add dot replace r dot id dot container view comma new education selection fragment dot commit, and then we're going to add that fragment to the backstack. So we're going to add to backstack. Okay, so basically when you click on it, it's going to go to that fragment. So here we are, and we click here, it goes here. You go back, choose this one, set Okay, so you go here, you pick one of these, and you go back. Cool. So we want to, the idea here is that when you click on set, we are taking the home fragment, or let me make sure that the education selection fragment shows that it's education selection. So I'll go here, I'll say add on view created, we'll go get activity dot set get activity, set title, and we're going to write here, this is the education selection fragment. Now we run this again, here it is. So here we are, the home fragment, click on set education selection fragment, click back, it pops the backstack, right? So set backstack and so on. So here is the education selection fragment, you pick one of them. When you click submit, we will send this to the activity, and then the activity would like to send it to this fragment, right? Okay. So in order to do that, let's look at the, let's just do a little bit of wiring in the education selection fragment. Okay. Now, does it receive any data? Does the education selection fragment receive any data, or it should be initialized with any data? No. So basically, I need to remove all of that stuff and all the implementation of the new instance and all that you don't need here. This stuff also is not needed. We can do binding also if we need binding. It's called fragment education selection, so it's fragment education selection binding, fragment education selection binding. Here it is. Here's the binding, and then we'll do the same thing here. Binding equal fragment education selection binding, inflator container. Also, I have the binding, return binding dot get root. There it is. So we are done with the initialization of the binding, and we're good here. Good there. Let's have a look at the layout. This is called cancel degree, and this one is called button submit degree, and the radio group is what we are interested in. Okay, good. So we go back here, and on view created, right? Binding dot button cancel degree dot set on click listener new on click listener. So that's the first one. Binding dot button submit dot set on click listener new on click listener. So these are the on click listeners for the buttons. And now let's see what the interface that we're going to implement. We need to communicate the department that is the degree that is selected back to the activity, right? So we need an interface, public interface, and we call it, for example, edu selection listener. Okay, so first one is void cancel edu selection, right? So that's the cancel one. Void send selected edu, right? So the string and education, right? That's what I'm going to do here, right? So basically I'm going to send the education, whatever the education level the user has picked, or cancel, right? And we do the same thing here. We create an mListener, right? Here it is, the variable called mListener. Where do we get the mListener? On attach, and here's mListener equals this context. We cast the context to the listener, and we get it. Okay, good. So basically all what we're going to do here is mListener, the cancel, the submit, no, the cancel is easy. So the cancel, we're just going to mListener dot cancel selection, all right? The submit, we need to get what the selection is. So basically what we could do is we could do this. If you see binding dot we have the radio group, right? Dot get selection ID or check ID. Get radio button check ID. You see that? That's an integer, so we can put an integer here. So the integer checked ID equals this, right? There's a missing E here. Okay, here's the radio button checked ID, and you could say if checked ID equals to if checked ID is less than 0, right? So this means it's negative, actually equal to -1. If it's equal to -1, then they need to select something. Equal to -1, then you could just say toast get activity, and we just say here make a selection please. Okay, else, then we have that checked ID. Then what we could do is we could do binding dot radio group dot find view by ID or dot ID. This is the checked ID, so this enables us to get the checked ID. This is the radio group. This is going to be radio button, right? Radio button. There it is. So we can retrieve the radio button by just finding it under the radio group, right? It's one of his children. And then the selected department string selected department equals the radio group, the radio button dot get text dot to string, so that gets you the whatever the user has picked, and then mlistener dot send the selected edu. So this is the selected edu. This is the selected education level. Okay, so basically all what I'm doing here is that when the user clicks submit, just checking, you go in and get the checked ID. If it's equal to -1, this means the user didn't make any selection. If the user made a selection, you have the ID of the object. Then you can do binding radio group. You know, these are all children of the radio group, so you can do find view by ID under it, and you can get them. You can get the radio button that was selected, and from there you can get the text inside it, and that becomes the selected edu, and that's what we're going to send back to the main activity. Okay, so let's run this and just make sure that things are wired up. Now in the main activity, before we run this, in the main activity we need to implement the edu listener. There it is. And basically the edu listener has these methods, the cancel. So what does the cancel do? Basically when you go to the edu, you put on the backstack the one that was being displayed. So when you cancel, you just pop the backstack. Get support fragment manager, pop backstack. That's what we're going to do, and that pops the backstack, right? Then here you have the selected department. I'm just going to display the selected department, or the selected education level, I mean, and just to display it on the tag, in the log, just on the logcat, so you could see it. Where's the logcat? Make it a little bit smaller. I'm gonna clear it. We are here. You click set. It comes here. Let's say 12th grade, and I click submit, and it shows up 12th grade or less. Right. Now when I click cancel, it pops the backstack. So now what I would like to do, so now what do we need to do? We need to find the fragment that we would like to send the education level to, right? Then send the, then after that, we're gonna send the data to that fragment. Send the data to that fragment, and then we're going to pop the backstack. Right, that's what we're going to do. So now to find it, the thing is that technically this fragment, when you're coming back, technically that fragment is on the backstack. It is on the backstack. You can find it. In order to find it, either you find it by ID or you find it by a tag. So now, if we're gonna find it by a tag, this means that at the time when we added the fragment to the activity, we need to add a tag to it so that we could find it by it. So basically, you see here, where did we add the home fragment? We added it here. So basically, there's a third parameter that you can add, which is the tag. We call it, for example, home fragment, right? And now, when you come back here, you can find it. So you can say get support fragment manager dot find fragment by tag. You see here, and it returns a fragment. It receives a tag and returns a fragment. So I'm going to do this home fragment. So it doesn't only search the fragments that are on the screen, but also searches the fragments that are on the backstack. So this is the home fragment. Home fragment equals this. Okay, and we can cast that here. Here it is. Okay. Now what you can do is you can check. You need to check to see if home fragment is not equal to null, right? And sending the data to the fragment, I'll come back to it, but let's pop the backstack. So I'm going to say get support fragment manager dot pop backstack. So now, in order to show you this, what I'm going to do is that inside the home fragment, I would like to show you what happens when you pop a fragment from the backstack. You will see that when you pop a fragment from a backstack, the on view created and the on create view and on view created will be re-executed again. You'll see log d, and I'm going to put another log here, log d, just to show you this. And this is of the home fragment. So this is the home fragments and home fragment, just to show you this. So let's run this. Here we are, and notice if you look at the logcat, you'll see that I'll run it again. Here it is. So when the app first started, let me remove the onCreate from these log messages from the activity. Okay, let me remove that here and run it again. Okay. You see here when the fragment first got created, the on create view got called and on view created also get called. Now let's go here. Now that home fragment is on the backstack. Now if you just even click cancel, see what happens? The on create view and the on view created get recalled again. Why? Because what happens is that the system will redraw the layout again, maintaining the state of that layout, but it will redraw the layout. You know that when the fragment is put on the backstack, it's just as if it's put in the freezer. When it's popped from the backstack, it has to be defrosted or it comes back. So it brings it back to life. How does it bring it back to life? It recreates the layout. Okay, and that's why these methods are being called again: the on create view and on view created. So what happens is that if you are going, when we come back, see when we click here and we pick one of these departments, and we are able to locate the fragment. We are able to locate the fragment from the backstack. Now, what we could do is we can deposit this data inside the fragment, and then when the fragment is on view created gets executed again, we can check to see do I have an education level. If you have an education level, then you can display it. So how do we do that? We go back to the home fragment, and then I will have here a variable. I'll call it, for example. I'll call it say a private variable, string, and I'll call it, for example, selected edu, right? And it's originally null, right? It's to start with, it's null, and then we'll create a setter for it. So basically a setter for this, and here it is. So set the selected edu, okay, and I'll make it public. Selected edu. Send me a selected edu. I just initialize it here. Okay, cool. So when we go back to the main activity, we are here. We did retrieve the fragment. So here we did find fragment by tag. We retrieve the fragment, check to see if it's not null. Then I do home fragment dot set edu, and I'll send it the education. So basically here you sent the edu, the education that was selected, to the fragment, right? Now, as indicated, when the fragment comes back from the backstack, it is going to do what? It is going to recall these two methods, the on create view and on view created. So basically, if I go back to the home fragment, on view created, what I could do is that I could check to see if selected edu is not equal to null, is equal to null. Let's say, for example, is equal to null, right? I'll do something else. I'm going to do something else. So if it's equal to null, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this string to NA, right? So basically, I will do binding dot say edu selected dot set text to, I'll say not selected, not set yet, right? Not set. Now, if it's not equal to null, then binding dot text edu dot set text to selected edu. Okay. Now let's run this again. So the first time it comes in, this variable is null, right? The selected edu is null. Now let's type a name, for example, let's say Bob, right? And I click on set. I'll go back. I still have Bob, and this is still not set because we never set the selected edu. You click on set again. I'll pick, say, 12th grade, and I click on submit, and it says 12th grade or less. You click on set, associate degree, submit, right? Now going back to what we did, it's very straightforward. So what we did is this. So basically what we did is, when you go to the education selection, so basically this is education selection, going to the education selection, we replace the current fragment, which is the home fragment, by the education selection fragment, and we add the home fragment to the backstack, right? Going to the education selection fragment, the user, when the user clicks the submit button, we find out what did they pick, right? And then we send it to the main activity using the send selected edu, which is one of the methods that we declared here in the interface, right? Now, if you go to the main activity, if you look at selected edu, what we're doing is that we're find the fragment that we'd like to send the edu level to, which is the home fragment. We find it by tag. How do you specify the tag? When you first insert or add the fragment to the screen, or to the activity, you specify a tag, and we can use that tag to find it. So basically, here's the home fragment, get support fragment manager, find fragment by tag, and we specify the tag. Now we check to see if that fragment is not null. If it's not null, we set a variable inside that fragment, okay? And then what happens is that we are relying on the fact that when you pop the backstack, the onViewCreated method gets called again, right? So basically, that's why in here, we come back, the edu was null at the beginning, but when we come back, now we have an edu value because we set it, and then we could display it. That's exactly what we are doing. So now we did demonstrate in this demo, or in this video, how you can go from the, say for example, from one fragment, you display another fragment, and then that other fragment sends data back to another fragment, or the originating fragment. So you could see here, you could do that. Notice also that when you specify the name, and let's say 33 is the age, and you go and click on set, you pick, for example, some college, click submit, this data is still maintained. Why? Because it's popping it from the backstack, and we are sending the data back to the fragment using find fragment by tag. All right, please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.